part of this process, I want to begin by just reading the verses that are on the back of your program. These were Herb's life verses. By the way, my name is Steve. If you don't know that, I apologize. I forgot to say that earlier. I'm the pastor here at the church and was Herb's pastor, and just an honor to be with you today. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes on not what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. These verses were Herb's life verses. I think it's only fitting that as we begin our time of remembering and honoring him here today, that we would highlight these verses. These are words that bring us comfort today, which I am very grateful for. They're words that remind us that Herb kept his eyes fixed on Jesus. So I was spending time with Renee earlier in the week, thinking about this time and what we wanted to do. One of the things that I said to her is I said, we want to try and bring comfort to those of us who are going to be gathered together. We want to honor Herb's life, and we want to honor Jesus. But the interesting thing about Herb is you can't honor him without automatically honoring Jesus. And so we are gathered together today to do that. We are thankful that he is with Jesus today. I want to share with you some biographical details of Herb's life. We typically call this a eulogy, and what we're going to do is I'm going to share just some very, very brief details about his life, but then what we're going to do the rest of the time here together this morning is we're actually going to hear the story of Herb. Because the story of who Herb is can't be contained in details about where he was born and those kinds of things in any way. The story of Herb actually is about the impact that he had on the people around him. So we're going to hear from a number of different folks and be able, before the time is over, I believe, to be able to really reflect on this man and what an amazing man of God he was. But let's start with some details. So, Herb was born June 17, 1951 in Little Rock, Arkansas to J.B. and Alpha Tolbert. The oldest of four siblings, Herb, Sonia, Joy, and Martha. The family moved to California when Herb was very young, and eventually they settled in Mount Shasta. That is where Herb spent his formative years, eventually graduating from Mount Shasta High School in 1969. After high school, he began a lifelong commitment to learning and education. Eventually, he earned his doctorate in 1999. And then from 2000 to 2013, he served in various administrative roles that took he and Renee all over the country. All of those, actually, are bookended by a beginning time here in Reading at Simpson University, and then a time at the end back here at Simpson University. Along that journey, Herb welcomed his lifetime. He welcomed two children into his life, Sonia and Drew, who he loved both very, very much. In 1996, he met and married Renee, and the two of them experienced 18 wonderful years together, which also then brought into Herb's life a new son-in-law, Leon. And then through his children, Herb was honored to also become the amazing grandpa to three fine young people. Of course, we can't tell the story of who Herb is without talking about the fact that young people was one of Herb's deep, deep passions. He coached lots and lots of young people down through the years. He especially loved basketball, both watching it and coaching it. He was a teacher, a mentor to hundreds of young people over the years, some of whom we're going to hear from in just a few minutes. Herb was also an avid outdoor enthusiast. He loved hiking and backpacking, mountain climbing with family and friends. A number of years ago, Herb developed a lung disease similar to cystic fibrosis called bronchiectasis. Did I say that right? Bronchiectasis. Is that better? Okay. Over the course of the last month or so, Herb got another infection in his lungs, which to which he was so prone. And then last Saturday morning on December the 6th, as a result of some of the complications from that illness, Herb went home to be with the Lord. Well, all of us here would agree that the end of Herb's life came way too soon. I think all of us would also acknowledge that Herb deeply, deeply impacted us. And that's what we want to spend the rest of our time remembering today. These are just the very brief biographical details of who Herb was. But what we want to do now is, I think Herb would appreciate this, in the words of Paul Harvey, tell the rest of the story. And so to get us started on that, Renee is going to come and she's going to share some thoughts, and then his sister is going to come and share some words, and then we're going to have a few reflections that are going to be read by a friend, Buzz, that's a part of our community here, that are some things that the folks sent to us, and then one of the young men that he coached may have an opportunity to share, and then his son-in-law Leon is going to get up and share a few words, and then we're actually going to give you an opportunity to tell the story of who Herb is with us. And so we're going to have these few voices that are going to share their thoughts and memories and reflections first, and then there will be an opportunity for you to share and reflect as well. So Renee is going to come first and help us get this going.
Due to some difficulties with the microphones, you couldn't hear me because of the feedback. So for the purpose of this YouTube video, I've decided to just read what I spoke. So right here, I look around the congregation and I say, what a church. I love you so much. Thank you everyone for coming to honor our 1 in a million man. In November 1995, during choir practice, Alpha asked the choir to pray for her son who was at UC Davis. I had no idea Herb's name would be imprinted on my heart forever. Little did I know, God was beginning to orchestrate an amazing relationship above and beyond all I could ask or imagine. Although I had never met him, I prayed fervently for him and his lung issue that they could not resolve. 3 months later, while at work at Perko's restaurant, Alpha and JB came in for dinner. A young, handsome man was with them. The fact that he was sporting an oxygen tank told me it was the man I'd been praying for the past 3 months. I introduced myself, excited to meet him, and told him I had been praying for him. It was just 4 months later, after the removal of the upper left lobe of his lung, we went on our first date for lunch, saw the movie Twister, and of course took a tour of Simpson College. On our second date, the Lord impressed on me that I was going to grow old with this man. We had only had one more date before he told me he was falling in love with me. So less than 1 week from our first date, our journey began. Our lives were forever changed, and we became inseparable. I called him my 1 in a million man from the very beginning for so many reasons, but mainly because I knew when he called me for our first date and prefaced it with, "If you aren't dating anyone else," I knew he was a perfect gentleman and a 1 in a million. I am honored that the Lord chose me to be his soulmate, to be by his side in sickness and in health. Many times he would say, "Thank you for hanging in there with me, babe." And I'd just laugh and say, "There were no options. When I said my vows, I meant it." Aside from the rich or poor, I knew in my heart I would be challenged with the in sickness and in health part more than any other of our vows. But he was a 1 in a million man, and nothing was bigger than my adoration and love for him. He was a 1 in a million man in every area of his life. He loved deeply, he craved peace and community, and he loved simplicity. All he wanted was for people to love one another. He was a man of integrity, character, and more patience than I ever knew a person could possess. He was my cheerleader, my encourager, always and forever in my corner. He was a no-nonsense kind of guy, and anything having to do with drama, he retreated from as fast as possible. He did not have time or room in his life for silliness, as he called it. I loved that about him. He was just real, down-to-earth real. He put up no false pretenses or expectations. That right there made him 1 in a million. And so it is, just as the Lord brought us full circle with our 6 moves from Reading to the East Coast and back home to Reading, He has now brought us full circle with the very illness that brought us together. When Herb would be sad over being sick, I'd say, "But honey, just think, we would have never met." He'd smile, and with those big amazing blue eyes and deep dimples, he'd say, "That's very true, and you are such a blessing to me." I grieve for my loss, your loss, our loss. But I rejoice and praise God because the very thing that took him from us, God used to bless my life, my son's life, my grandkids' life, and even my siblings. I rejoice because he is with Jesus and breathing better than he has in 40 years. And I cannot be sad about that. So I read that just a little bit faster than I said it the day of the funeral. Okay, the rest of the audio on the video is correct and the lips match, so thank you for tolerating that.
I'm Joy, Herb's youngest sister, and first of all, I want to say on behalf of Herb and our family, thank you for coming. I know that he will be humbled and honored to have you here. So, to begin, I have known Herb for all my life. We called him by his nickname Hot Rod, and it was really hard to stop calling him that when he wanted us to call him Herb. But Herb was the oldest, next Sonia, and then, hallelujah, praise the Lord, because God gave her a little brother, Mark, and Mark was good. I could just picture my brother praying, "Oh, please God, don't give me another sister, send me another." Mom said as soon as Mark could sit up and hold on, Herb was setting him in the wagon, racing him around the house. Barbara would be squealing in delight. And Marvin and I were talking the other evening, and he remembers that Herb took him everywhere. They were best buddies. They were pals. And he would even set Marvin on the handlebars of his bike. You know, that Lord forbid now seeing someone do that, but they went all over, and Herb took him everywhere. And even when Herb was a teenager and then a college student, he always included his little brother Marvin in many activities. And which one? Big one is they climbed to Mount Shasta, the top of Mount Shasta together. Pretty cool. Growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. We had more than money can buy, though. We had a God-centered home with wonderful, loving parents. We were not entertained, but we learned how to entertain ourselves. And Herb was a leader even as a young lad. He always organized some outdoor game or activity. We, and sometimes indoors too, but we were not sedentary kids. We were always moving and on the go. And Herb, even at a young age, was also a teacher. I remember that in Hollister, California, I was having trouble learning how to ride my bike. So Herb decided to take the training wheels off my bike, put me on the seat, gave me a big push, and it was pedal like crazy or crash and die. Obviously, I chose to pedal. He also taught us how to throw a ball, catch a ball, swing a bat, and as you can probably guess, Herb loves sports. Our family moved to Mount Shasta in 1964, and we siblings consider Mount Shasta to be our hometown. What an idyllic place to live. Mom and Dad were educators, so our summers were spent filled with traveling, camping, picnics, fishing, swimming. We were raised with lots of love, music, laughter, and humor. And all of us were raised with an appreciation of God's creation, which is carried through into our adult lives, for sure. I have fond memories of playing kick the can with all the neighborhood kids on warm summer evenings shortly after dusk. We would hide behind bushes, cars, garbage cans or whatever we could find, and play until someone's parent called out, "Time to come home," and then we'd all disband and go home. Another moment in time that is etched on my mind forever is one Christmas in January 1966. Mount Shasta was pummeled with a huge snowstorm. We were literally dumped with 5 feet of new snow, and our little town of Mount Shasta was basically shut down. And we kids, all of the kids from Mount Shasta, had one extra week of Christmas vacation. And I know that my mom and dad were probably worried about the roof caving in, food, electricity, all that stuff. But for the Tolbert kids, it meant one thing: sledding. We lived at the top of Warren Street, and all of us would pile like slices of cheese, one on top of another on our sled. We'd zigzag down the street, starting slowly and then eventually zooming down to the bottom, only to crash into a snowbank at the bottom of the hill. Of course, with Dawson's house at the bottom of the hill. What wonderful memories. So icy snow flying, red noses, rosy cheeks, tiny scent in the air. Truly a winter wonderland and a magical time in our lives, and life was good. Herb loved Christmas. He was the instigator in waking up early, like really early. And here's how it played out. Herb would wake up Marvin downstairs in their bedroom around 3 a.m. And then we'd sneak up the stairs to the girls' bedroom, Sonia and me. Then we would go sliding down the hardwood floor hallway and knock on Mom and Dad's bedroom door. "Can we open our gifts?" Go back to bed. Of course, obediently, we went back to bed. Then around 4 a.m., Herb and Marvin tripping up the stairs, waking up the girls, slipping down the hallway to our parents' room asking, "Can we open our gifts?" Again to be told, "Go back to bed." Of course, obediently, we went back to bed. Finally, usually around the 3rd time, the same scenario again. Herb and Marvin climbing up the stairs, waking up the girls, slipping and sliding down the hallway. "Knock, knock. Can we open our gifts?" "Okay." And Mom, I want you to know it was all Herb. Sometime later, when Herb was a teenager, he got his first job at a gas station, as a gas station attendant. I can't remember what gas station that was. It wasn't Shell, but it wasn't Chevron. Oh, Shell. I remember that he brought us, but I remember distinctly that with his earned money, he bought all of us gifts. And I know that that gave him great joy to be the one giving. That was who he was, a considerate and kind person. We, the Tolbert children, had a lifetime of joyful moments to be thankful for and cherish. And my last thoughts are this. In 1 Corinthians 2:9, it says, "No eye hath seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for them that love him." This is not all there is. So, love God, the creator of the wonderful earth that we're on. Herb did. Love your family passionately. Herb did. Love one another. Herb did. I have hope that we will see Herb again. And when we do, what a glorious day that will be.
I have the privilege of reading some comments from friends of Herb's, people whose lives he touched. And these memories just march us back through time. The first one I want to share is Christina Linton, Simpson University, remembering some times there. What sticks out most in my memory is that when Herb moved on to other colleges, he still kept his connections. He would send me little notes asking, "How are you, my friend?" Just like the cards he would leave in the inbox at work when he worked with me. Herb was about people like no one I've ever known. He walked the walk. The next one comes from Darlene Myrick. Cox College in Missouri. I remember meeting her for the first time in an interview and walking away thinking, what a great boss he would be. I was hired by this wonderful man and my life was never the same again. It was the only job I ever had where I loved coming in to work every morning. Greeted by his sweet smile and his gorgeous blue eyes and kind words every morning, no matter how busy he was. The next comes from Merrill Nix, Montreat College in North Carolina. I doesn't pronounce it right. Herb was a mentor, friend, and possibly the world's greatest boss. What a proud man. He was a great example of how a leader can motivate and support others to grow and learn. Herb was a wonderful person to have on your team and didn't even mind when we made him wear Mickey Mouse hats. Here's some memories from some students of his from Granger, Washington in the late 70s and early 80s. Brad and Craig Carpenter write about their coach and their teacher. Mr. Tolbert, as we called him as coach and teacher at Granger High, was a young man when he first entered the halls of Granger High School. As students and athletes, we all found out soon this young man was dedicated to integrity and pursuit of excellence, both in sports and in the classroom. Faith was an important part of his life then, and as we learned later also. Herb never preached of his own goodness, but he was instrumental in leading many of us young ones to the one who is and who provides our goodness. Herb had a way about him that was gentle yet firm. He could be hard on us, but also we knew he was a true friend, and we all respected him as a mentor. If you had a question about anything and he didn't know it, he always said, I don't know the answer, but let me look into it and I will tell you what I find out. And he always did. Herb was humble yet forthright, never promoting himself, but always interested in those around him. And he loved a good belly laugh. He did. As humor was his way to glue together the bond with those who held dear. Brad writes, Herb was my senior year basketball coach at Granger, and he was tasked with putting together a ragtag bunch of seniors, juniors, and a few sophomores as a team. He accomplished that well. Herb's affiliation with the Northwest basketball camps was strong in those days. Many of those Granger athletes still look to the lifelong values that Herb adhered to. Craig goes on to remember, Herb coached Craig and Eva must have been a sister or cousin, in high school track, and Eva in volleyball. Herb coached Craig at the state discus competition. Herb couldn't throw a disc worth beans, but he learned from films and successfully conveyed the technique. Craig and Tom Carpenter went to Washington State University one summer with Herb. Macaroni and cheese dinners were the economy dinner in those days. Craig remembers Herb laughing really hard one night. They were walking from their house back to campus while passing Greek Road. I don't know what Greek Road was. A car passed them that looked like it had hit a pole with a big dent in it. Tom said, that guy ran into me on the way home last night from the gym. Herb hit the ground laughing with his contagious laugh. On each weekend from summer school, Craig would give Herb the 3-hour ride back to his family in Granger. Often during these trips, Herb would ask Craig to go over for an adventurous hike in the wilderness. And once, unknowingly, into the Hanford nuclear district. Helicopters and security made sure they made it back to the property. The Carpenter clan
Wow, you are beautiful people. Thank you for coming to celebrate the life of her stepdad. So, word of warning, I may fumble over my words and forget what I was going to say. There's just some chance I might actually get through this okay, but really two things that I want to reflect on in the coming moments. And number one is just that Herb was a mighty leader with a gentle spirit. And number two is that he is a legendary grandpa to my two boys, Mike and Adam. His legacy is going to live on. Then I also have just some kind of random stories. I wasn't sure how they fit in, but I trust that you will archive them into stories of how amazing Herb really is. In 1990, I discovered this church, and I walked in here as a scrappy little skate punk. And you know what? It never mattered. It never mattered once. This community always treated me as if I was a part of the family. It was here where I began my journey following Jesus. And right back here, I was baptized. In these seats over here, I sang songs of praise and worship alongside some of my best friends. I would play the drums in this building when there was nobody here for hours. And I discovered that if you play punk rock music on the stage, that the walls will not cave in. But there's one more thing that I will always remember about this place, and that is that I walked my mom down this aisle to marry her. Of all the people, my mom asked me to walk her down this aisle. And I did it proudly. I did it with great honor. Because Herb was a guy who swiftly won my trust and respect. In '95, I left Reading to go to college, and it wasn't long after I got word from Mom that she met someone really special. She was really excited. And, hey, we're going to take a trip down so he can meet you. And that caught my attention because usually it's the other way around, where the kids take their love interest home to meet the parents. But here they were coming down to meet me, so they were meeting me. Just a few days after I got that phone call, I got a letter in the mail from Alpha Tolbert. And I still have that letter today. I really wish that I could have brought it to share with you, but essentially what it said was, well, he expressed his love for Jesus. He expressed his love for my mom. And he told me how excited he was to get to know me. Who does this? He's never met me before. But clearly he was all in from the beginning. And so over the years, when we would visit, whether it was in Northern California or Southern California, we always found ourselves in nature. And it always seemed like every trip had one thing per day that we had to do in nature. Taking a walk over the lagoon, maybe hiking to some old abandoned mine. And what I loved about it was that my boys, inevitably, one of them would say, they find something, and they pick it up and say, "Grandpa, look at this." It would be a piece of metal, a leaf, a seed, a stick, rock. And as the seasoned outdoorsman, he always knew exactly what it was, where it came from, how it was made. He entered right into their world of discovery. Always. He was always in their world of discovery. Whenever we went box, I always like to take a picture. The three of them, my two boys, Micah and Avid, and her, walking on the trail. Recently, I shared a photo, one of my favorites, of the three of them walking on the trail. And in one hand, Herb has his beloved walking stick that he always had with him. And in the other hand, he's holding the small hand of one of my sons. And to me, it's an iconic memory that will always last for me. I shared that photo recently, and one of my personal mentors, stay-at-home dad of triplets, a guy who's one of my personal heroes, he had this to share with me. He said, "Leon, there's something so awesome about having a little hand bound by a big hand. It's a lofty responsibility. It means you protect, you lead, you correct, you teach. You were all in." It's obvious that he was all in. Walking down that path, I'm not sure who felt luckier, her or your babies. Saturday, Herb became another righteous link in the divine chain that points squarely to God. A few generations from now, Evan's child will be walking his grandson down a similar path, holding a similar hand, in a similar way. At that moment, Jesus will lean over and whisper something into Herb's ear. "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So you see, I think that Herb being a legendary grandpa really had little to do with him being a grandpa at all. I think it was just who he was. He was a mighty leader with a gentle spirit. And I think that's what makes him a legendary son, brother, boss, friend, and stepdad. So may we all be people who are all in. May we find our way to that divine chain that links others to God.
As I said earlier, give you an opportunity to share some thoughts and some memories as well. And so if you have something that you'd like to share, if you'll just either stand up or raise your hand, and then Mr. Kira is going to come and bring the microphone to you. So run in, there you go. And young ladies that hurt you. That's why I don't do that job. Here's what I'd like for you to do, though. Obviously, we could be here all day doing this because of who Herb was. So we'll just have a little bit of time to be able to express these memories, but be sure and tell us your name and how you knew Herb so that we're all kind of on the same page as you start. That'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm Karen Gilliam Foss. I have the privilege of being raised along with the other four Tolbert children by Jade and Alpha Tolbert, so I just considered myself another Tolbert. I was able to make it through those long slides down to Orem, crash landings. I went through all of those experiences. I'm still alive to say. And one specific memory that is amazing is on the many outdoor adventures, hiking up and down several mountains, through canyons. Herb decided to take a bunch of us through the McCloud ice caves. I had never been spelunking. I had never been in an ice cave with a ceiling about 2 inches above my head. And I just trusted him that he knew where he was going, and we all ended up somehow out of there after about 2 hours. And just Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I went to see him in the hospital. He admitted that he was lost. And I totally trusted him. I didn't know I was lost.
You got help. You got lost. This is fun.
Oh, I love him. I love him as my older brother. Deeply.
That's a terrific thing. So good.
I'm not going to share.
Sure.
My name is Kira Chambers. I know her because his love for community and his love for creating community, back when him and Renee were newlyweds, which you wouldn't know they weren't newlyweds because they spent 2 decades being newlyweds. But they had a ministry at Simpson College where they invited newlyweds into their home and had a newlywed game, which is just as scary as it friendship, but not only did we develop friendship with a couple, we had daughters, and our daughters are friends because of her name. And it's just, my daughter would not have a best friend if it weren't for her name. And it means a lot.
It's awesome. So here, just to your right here is Ransom Micah. And by the way, I should say, are you going to talk about the boat or can I tell them about the boat? You're going to talk about it? Okay, I'll let you do it.
My name is Micah, and some of you might have seen a boat out there. I built it with him. It's one of my favorite memories with him.
Will you be sure to tell everybody the name of that boat? Because I think the name is awesome.
The USS Man.
Yeah. For Herb and Micah. So it's the USS Herb and Micah. Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you, sir. Brilliant. All right. Back there. Terrific.
My name is Pat Tucker, and I am a retired teacher. And so I just have to say what a celebration of life this is, to be with so many of you who obviously celebrate life by working with young people. And I didn't know her very well. I think I met him when he was up on a small ladder in his mother's house fixing something for her. And when you hear about a wonderful person like Alpha Tolbert and celebrate his life, I would like to add a celebration to the head of the family who is with us now, his dear and wonderful mother, Alpha Tolbert, because we have known each other, oh my God, and I've been retired 20 years, so we've probably known each other 50 years, and went over to Chico to classes together, and we have had a life to share ourselves. But this family life, this celebration of life, and if you're in education, you know how many people, how many young people never have had the opportunity to have the strength of a mother and father and a loving family who have brought so much to this world to share. And I celebrate that and the mother of this family and having all of you here to celebrate Herb's life.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Appreciate that. Yeah. There we go. Good, thanks. There are two more, maybe? Right down here. Blue.
My name is Dave Dawson. Part of what Joy elaborated with living at the bottom of the hill in Mount Shasta. And you forgot to say when we plowed those streets, Bourne Street is a steep hill. And you couldn't even stand up on that snow. It was like ice. We had 4 or 5 kids stacked on a sled going about 40 miles an hour. At the bottom, there is no road that goes through. It's a T. So we used to jump out of the snowbank and land in the post office snow. It's great. When JD and I were 14 years old, I have a train story that I'm not going to get into because it takes a long time. That's a 10-minute story. Basically, Marvin and my brother Mark and JD and I were going to go fishing down at the bottom of Cantera Loop, and we had to ride the train back up to Mount Shasta because it's a steep hill. And when we got off, the train took off, but JD's dog, he was still on the box. So I ended up grabbing the boxcar, taking a ride all the way to almost Klamath Falls. In a t-shirt and shorts. I saw people ice skating along the way. It was pretty cold. The dog was a whippet. He was pretty cold too. He got really short hair. Anyway, the bottom line was I rescued his dog. And he was ever grateful for that. When we were 16, JB and I climbed the top of Mount Shasta together. That was a great trip. And when we were young, to run like the wind, we did. We were both great runners. We enjoyed running up behind the high school and through the woods and off the roads, through the trees and the brush and everything. It was great fun for us. So he was a really great friend and a wonderful, beautiful soul.
That's terrific. Thanks, Dave. And I were talking about this time together. This is a song that God reminded her of, that I think He just literally kind of dropped right into her memory. That is a song that Herb absolutely loved, and that in many ways is a song that really is a powerful descriptor of what Herb's life was, what he ultimately believed. And Lou and Penny Heck are going to come and sing that for us. It's called Loving God and Loving Each Other.
We'll invite you to sing along with us on the last chorus. So. I relate to the word about her saying he likes to avoid drama in his life. And Penny and I like to live in a DFC drama-free zone. So this is totally the worst part of that. And I love her.
review so much of what we would hear, or powerful reflections on who this man was. Just an incredible encourager, an amazing servant leader, deep man of integrity, someone who saw the potential in everyone. And as most of us, I think, know, it did not take Herb long to endear himself to anyone he met. It was very, very quick for Herb to just kind of wiggle his way right into your heart. One of the very, very recent illustrations of that actually is early in the morning. Herb passed away. He had been transferred around 1 o'clock in the morning into the ICU unit. So had only been there for 4 hours or so. And Renee got the call and arrived at the hospital, and as she was actually just getting ready to go in, they called an emergency call for hospital personnel to come. Renee overheard one of the nurses, they were running to go help, say, "Oh no, not him." 4 hours, this nurse knew her. And that was her response. So I've been trying to think about what causes a person to make that kind of impact that fast. The only thing I can think about is actually some things that Herb and I spent a lot of time talking about together. We both are men that love to study the idea and live and practice leadership. And so he and I had just lots and lots and lots of conversations about that subject. We could sit and wax eloquent with each other for hours over that kind of stuff and just never bore each other at all. Other people probably be like, "Man, those guys are weird," but we love it. One of the things that Herb and I both agreed on that is at the very, very heart of real, authentic leadership. It doesn't have anything to do with your skills. It has everything to do with your heart. That the heart of a person is what actually makes the impact in the world. When I was reflecting on that idea and conversations that Herb and I have had together, and I was thinking about the scriptures, the story that immediately came to my mind related to that. Story found in the 16th chapter of Old Testament book of 1 Samuel, where Samuel is asked to go and anoint a new king. King Saul has not made the best decisions as a leader. In fact, his heart has wandered from God. And so God sends Samuel the prophet to a man named Jesse's house to anoint one of his sons to be the next king. And as was the custom of the day, Jesse begins by parading out his oldest son in front of Samuel. And we read in 1 Samuel 16, verse 6, when they arrived, Samuel took one look at Eliab and thought, "Surely this is the Lord's anointed." Big strapping guy. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Earlier, God had said that he was going to choose a new king whose heart beat after God's heart. And we eventually learn that this is David, and we discover that God says that David was a man whose heart beat after God, whose heart followed God's heart. And the truth is that I've not been able to get my mind away from that text from early this week. Because I think that's just who Herb was. Herb was a man whose heart beat after God's. Now, if you know anything about the life of David, you know that David didn't live a perfect life. Herb would be the first one to tell us that that was true of him as well. He did not live a perfect life. But Herb Herb's heart was totally sold out to following God's heart. Totally. And as a result, Herb regularly and consistently demonstrated that heart of God to the world around him. We've heard how strong of a leader Herb was. There are a number of you here that worked in partnership with Herb out at Simpson University. One of the powerful stories that I heard this week was from somebody that worked in his office here this last season that he was here, and how one of the things that Herb did every single morning when he would arrive at the office, he would go to every single person in his office and greet them personally every morning and say hello. How do you doing? Herb truly was a strong leader who accomplished a great deal of things, but he did it with such a deep sense of care and compassion to all those who were around him that you were willing to follow him because of his heart, not because he helped you accomplish a lot of stuff. And in the process, you accomplished a lot of stuff together. He was a man that truly empowered others. He recognized that no matter how much he might accomplish in terms of productivity, his greatest accomplishment was always pouring himself out for the sake of others. That is truly the heart of God. One of the things that I appreciate and love so much about this season of the year, and I think having spent time with Herb, I think he would give a hearty amen to this, is that this is a season of the year in which, in the coming of Christ to our world, we are reminded that God is the God who is constantly on the move out seeking others. And that's how Herb's heart beat as well. Constantly. Because his heart beat after God's heart, and that's who God is. Herb and I, as I said, have had lots and lots of conversations about these ideas together. His deepest desire is to always help the love of God to grow and blossom in those people that God placed in his life. And I believe that somehow, ultimately, if Herb were able to be here with us this morning, that is the essence of what he would want us to remember. Herb was such a guy of little pretense. He would be the first one to say to us today, this should not be about me. This needs to be about Jesus. This needs to be about all of us passionately pursuing the heart of God the way that he did. Allowing our hearts to be after God's heart, just like Herb did. That would be the legacy that Herb would want us to all live into. Thankfully, because that's the kind of man Herb was, we are people who grieve differently today. We are people who, in the midst of our hurt and pain, that we're no longer physically going to be able to be with her. We are people who have hope in tomorrow. Amen. Because Herb's heart beat after God's heart, and now he's breathing holy air somewhere. Deep breaths of holy air, which I think he would want all of us to join him in as well. I want to highlight for you the insert that is inside of your little program there. This is actually something that Herb wrote about the fruit of the Spirit that we wanted you to be able to have and take with you as a part of your remembrance of Herb. And I think as you read down through this page, you're just going to hear Herb all over it. This is who he was. But more than who Herb was, I hope you will hear the very heartbeat of God in these words. Because That's where Bird's heart was, following after God's heart. With one final song that we're going to hear together, Rick and Karen Foster are going to come, and Phil Knight is going to come and help them as well. We're going to sing a song that is a way for us to kind of give a final goodbye. The word says, go rest on that mountain, on that mountain. Rest on that mountain. that he was constantly a part of your hands and feet, reaching to share your love to those who are around him. We're also grateful this day that we are people who, even though we must say goodbye, we rejoice that he is with you. That we have that hope together today. We ask that you would continue to bring great comfort to Renee and Alpha and the rest of the family. May they, over the course of the next few days and weeks, just really continue to experience your incredible grace in their lives. Thank you again for meeting with us and walking with us through every step. We pray this in your name. Amen. Just a couple of quick notes about what is going to happen next. We have some food to share together downstairs in our family center. If you go out these doors on this end of the foyer and then walk straight down through the outdoor hallway, there's a set of double doors directly across a little walkway, and then go down the stairs in there. If you need to not navigate the stairs, you can actually drive around the back of the campus and park down there and then come in the lower door. That is another way that you can get into that building. We're going to be sharing sandwiches today, which were some of Herb's favorite. However, no rolls. He did not like rolls. That was way too much bread in a sandwich. So there is only sliced bread in the sandwich today. No rolls. And there is chocolate cake and Cool Whip, which was also one of his favorites for dessert. And so we want you to come and join us down there. One of the things that you'll discover as you get to the bottom of the stairs is there's a little table with a jar on it and then some colorful cards that look like this, called the blessing jar. This is a thing that, a tradition that Herb and Renee had started a couple of years ago. There's some colorful slips of construction paper there with some pens. And what Renee would love for you to do is to use that to be able to jot down a blessing. A thought, a memory, a blessing of how Herb was a blessing to you in your life. Then you're going to drop it in the big jar. And their tradition was that all throughout the year, they would jot these little blessings down, and then on New Year's Day, they would get them out, and they would read over all of them together on New Year's Day. And so she is greatly looking forward to reading the blessings that you're going to add to the blessing jar just here in a couple of weeks when she gets to review those again. So there's also little cards that explain that tradition that Renee would love for you to take, because she loves for that tradition to be in more than just her home. It's a way of honoring and remembering her as well. So you're encouraged to do that. And then the final thing that I need to let you know is that you're about to hear a song as we exit from here that might seem a little odd, and yet you're going to know right away it's incredibly fitting. So thanks for being with us. We hope you'll come and be with us downstairs. If you weren't able to sign the guest book, we're also going to bring it downstairs as well too. So God bless you and thanks for being with us. Here we go.